All right. Ooh, sorry.
Check, check. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Bob. Everybody, welcome to our service this morning at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Miami. Please come in and find a seat. My name is Alex Kolaitzi. I am the Director of Music here at UU Miami. Good morning to everybody joining us on the live stream this morning. Please feel free to grab a candle or a chalice that you can light with us when we light the chalice a little bit later in our service. Everyone, we have two very special parts of our service today. We have our guest minister, who you will meet very shortly, but we also have some guest musicians that I would love to introduce you to. Our guest musicians today are Choir Next Door. Choir Next Door is a New Jersey-based quartet of tenor and basses. You'll see them in just a second, so you'll know what I'm talking about. They focus on keeping choral music accessible for all by way of free concerts and educational workshops throughout. They were just in the state of Florida. They did a concert here last night that was very nice. They will be providing our 2 hymns and our special music this morning, and I am very excited to have them. Our first hymn this morning will be a little bit different. The words will be projected over my shoulder. It's number 119. Yes, number 119 in the gray hymnal. Choir Next Door will lead us. Singing, for the first time in my tenure, is optional this morning. Thanks for laughing. Singing is optional. If you'd like to just listen to Choir Next Door, that's fine with me too. Choir Next Door, can you make your way up here, please? Everybody, can we give them a little round of applause as they make their way up? Thank you very much. So friends, Choir Next Door will lead us in hymn number 119, Once to Every Soul and Nation.
Once to every soul and nation comes the moment to decide. In the strife of truth with falsehood, for the good or evil to stand with truth is noble, when we share its wretched crust. Ere that cause bring fame and profit, and 'tis prosperous to be just. Though the cause of evil prosper, yet 'tis truth alone is strong. Though its portion be the scaffold, and upon the throne be wrong, then it is the brave one chooses, while the coward stands aside, till the multitude make virtue of the faith they have denied.
Good morning. Make sure y'all are awake. Okay. Fabulous, fabulous. Welcome to our multi-platform space here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Miami, or as we call it, UU Miami. As a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, or the UUA, we bring a liberal religious voice to the great city of Miami. I am the Reverend Tom Capo, the minister here, I'll get it out, at UU Miami. Up on the chancel with me is Reverend Paul Raushenbush, who will be our speaker today. He's the president and CEO of the Interfaith Alliance. I'm going to introduce him a little bit more when he comes up to speak, because it would take a little while for me to do that. So we're gonna pause for that, and tell you also that Joseph up here is with me. Toledo, he's our pianist, and Alex Coliizzi, who is our music director, and of course you just met the choir next door. Wow. Tomorrow is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And while we are not explicitly having a service about Martin Luther King Jr., I did want to acknowledge his work for civil rights and his wisdom that he shared with the world. I guess I ask you to consider, or invite you to consider, how Martin Luther King Jr. might impact you tomorrow. Perhaps you might consider an act of service. Perhaps you might reflect on some of his wisdom. I wanted to share just a short passage that he wrote and invite you to consider how you will live Martin Luther King Jr. Day tomorrow. He said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that." So I invite you, my friends, in one form or fashion, to be the light the world needs tomorrow. UU Miami wants to acknowledge that we gather on the traditional lands of the Tequesta, Seminole, and Miccosukee people, and that we honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who stewarded it throughout generations. May we continue to learn how to be better stewards of the land that we now inhabit. And we say that every week, and I just want to affirm that each of us takes that in and considers, how can we really be better stewards? How can we acknowledge the peoples who stewarded this land? I can't answer that question for you, but I hope that you will consider it in your hearts. UU Miami is a community of brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers, and we invite you to learn more about us. You can go to our Facebook page or Instagram or LinkedIn. There it is up there. Or you can talk to me or somebody with like a name tag on, or you can email me at minister@uumiami.org. If you've attended a little while and like to learn about membership in our congregation, please talk to somebody. We'll be glad to help you out. Now, I'd like you to join me, if you would, in saying our covenant this morning. Oh, it's up here on the screen. We are an open, welcoming community who embodies respect, kindness, compassion, and curiosity. We foster a safe space that invites others to express their authentic, creative selves and unique ideas. We build relationships with one another by listening deeply with understanding and respect. We make positive difference in our community using our combined time, talents, and treasure. We are committed. Last one? Should be one more. It'll come up. Well, I'll say it. All right. We are committed to increasing learning, growth, and change. There we go. It is our tradition to light a chalice at the beginning of our services. And with the chalice lighting, we offer some words to reflect on. These words were written by Unitarian Universalist Erica Hewitt. To be a Unitarian Universalist means we'll know that our work is never completely done. The work of telling the truth about the oppressed, the work of resisting any laws, policies, or practices that deny anyone's humanity, the work of stubbornly seeking out the spark of the divine in each other, no matter what, the work of creating heaven on earth. To be a Unitarian Universalist also means we're not alone in this work. We're not alone because of our promises to love one another. We're not alone because we are companions on the journey. We grow ourselves into allies, helping one another get free. Because none of us is truly free until we are all free.
We will now take this time to sing the children and youth out to their RE classes. If you are so inclined, children and youth, look at me. You can come this way, please, and through the front. Please sing if you know the tune. May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
We set aside, there I am. Each week we set aside some time in our services for those of us here to share the joys and sorrows that may be on our hearts. We share the joys with this community because we all want to feel happy with you. And we're inviting you to share your sorrows because we want to walk alongside you in your sadness. So I invite those who have a joy or a sadness to come up, share that with this, our faith community, and please say your name so we know who you are.
Hello, everyone. I'm Derek. I'm doing the live stream, and I have an online joy from CJ Weber, whose mother is home from rehab and getting better and stronger every day.
Good morning, I'm Bob Jacober, and I recently celebrated birthday number 93. Thank you for allowing me the stage for a couple of minutes. How to prepare for a good day at UU Miami. Let there be coffee on earth, made just right by me. Let there be French toast too, made sweet with strawberry jelly. A strip of bacon fried crispy and nice, and a small glass of milk cooled with a cube of ice. My vitamins too, adding just what I need to be healthy and happy in doing this good deed. Then exercise, bending and stretching each joint, tying mind and body together. Feeling good is my point. I asked the big sun to come up and shine, but I won't tell anyone that this good deed was mine. I hope that I find that you like my writing style, so I get a laugh or two, and from some a nice smile. I'm off to do a good deed or two, for both to be happy, me and my victim too. So watch out, everybody in UU.
Wait. Now, when is your birthday?
It was Friday.
Can we sing happy birthday to Bob?
Okay, yeah.
I'm Terry Lohman, and this is my husband, Mark Cassis, and we have a gratitude today. It's minus 17 degrees at home right now, so we're really glad to be here.
And home is Iowa, by the way, and he knows about it.
We are blessed by all those joys and sorrows expressed, and those not expressed, but still very much on our hearts. He's a great pianist, so it's okay. Normally, at the beginning of the service, I also say, you know, my pronouns are he, him, and his, and I'm a white male with my hair growing backwards over my head. And then I talk about what I'm wearing. And I put it off today because the reading that I'm doing in just a second is on my tie. Now, it's not often that you have, you know, your tie actually says what you're reading. So it is a fascinating. If you want to come and see my tie sometime, it's 1 Corinthians 13. So that's what we're about to hear. If I speak in the tongues of mortals or of angels, but do not have love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have prophetic powers and understand all the mysteries and knowledge, if I have all faith, and so as to move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in the wrongdoings, but rejoices in truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see in a mirror, dimly. But when we see face to face, now I know only in part. Then I will know fully, even as I know, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide. The greatest of these is love. Now is the time for our offering. For those of you online, I invite you to take out your smartphone and you can point it at the QR code. You can do that here too, actually, if you want to. You can point your phone at the QR code. You will also have an opportunity, because there will be a physical basket passed around if you want to do that too. Today you have the opportunity to not just give to UU Miami, but also to the Women's Emergency Network, or WEN. The Women's Emergency Network is a nonprofit organization that assists individuals in exercising their right for reproductive choice. They believe that every individual must have the right to decide if and when to have children. This congregation is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place and the work that we do in the world. For we are now the keepers of the dream. I'm going to read a meditation in just a moment. It was written by Unitarian Universalist Reverend D. Scott Cooper. So I invite you now into a spirit of prayer or meditation. Each of us has our own way to enter that space. I will offer you some thoughts about how to enter that space, but it really enter in your own way. You might take a deep breath just to ground yourself. Breathe comfortably and normally. You might let your hands rest in your lap. You might let your eyelids rest or close. And as I read this meditation, you might even visualize or imagine what I described. There is a glow far off in the distance, a light to which no path leads. We know that each time we help another or join them to heal the world, each time we stand up for justice and what is right, each time we work and hope and love against all odds, a spark is created that adds to the intensity of that light. We join with others who see and turn toward that glow. As we travel toward that beacon, the underbrush of indifference is flattened and a path is created. More are led to join us, and obstacles are kicked away until finally a road is formed. Many approach the light, strengthened by our work and the work of others. It is as if each of us who does this work lights a candle. And although many, many candles are lighted along the way, the light ahead of us never diminishes. We travel out into the world to light the darkness. And this cycle begins and continues and is ongoing, our work intensifying the glow of the road and the glow at the end of the path. We're joined with more and more people until it seems the road and the light are ablaze. We continue knowing that one day we or our grandchildren, or perhaps their grandchildren will no longer travel that widened and trodden path to just the light of a candle, but to dawn. For dawn has arrived, and justice is commonplace, and poverty is vanquished, and the beloved community stands illuminated in the fullness of daylight. Amen. Blessed be. Shalom.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
Well, I said I hadn't fully introduced our speaker. It takes 4 pages, so I'm going to give me a minute to introduce him. The Reverend Paul Brandenbush, Raushenbush, goodness gracious, is President and CEO of Interfaith Alliance. He is an ordained Baptist minister. As the great-grandson of the first Jewish Supreme Court Justice, Louis Brandeis, and the great-grandson of Baptist theologian Walter Raushenbush, a key figure in the social gospel movement, Reverend Raushenbush's commitment to interfaith advocacy comes in part from his own interfaith background. Prior to coming to the Interfaith Alliance, Reverend Raushenbush served as Senior Vice President of the Auburn Seminary, the founding and executive editor of Huffington's Religion, Associate Dean of Religious Life in the Chapel at Princeton University, a founding editor of BeliefNet.com. Most recently, he was a senior advisor for public affairs and innovation at Interfaith America. In addition to his work as president Reverend Raushenbush also serves as the host of the State of Belief Radio, Interfaith Alliance weekly radio show and podcast, which he'll probably talk about that. Reverend Raushenbush previously hosted Huffington Post podcasts All Together, where he interviewed a diverse array of guests, including working at the intersection of religion and politics, including Jimmy Carter, Patti Smith, RuPaul, Bishop T.K. Jakes, and Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. Reverend Raushenbush has spoken about religious diversity and the importance of inclusive religious liberty at colleges, churches, institutes around the country, including the Chautauqua Institute, the Center for American Progress, the New American Foundation, and the Aspen Institute. He is regularly invited to offer commentary on issues of religion and civil rights in national news outlets, including CNN, CBS, ABC, MSNBC, NPR, New York Times, Washington Post, Al Jazeera, BBC, The Hill, Vice, and Religious News Service. He has published 2 books and contributed essays to several volumes in public life. As my friend Matt said, wow. Paul, pulpit is yours.
Well, I know you wanted to hear a little bit more about me, so I'm sorry you did the short version. Let me just start by saying how glad I am to be with you today. I feel very at home in the Unitarian tradition. My grandparents were Unitarians. One of them was the daughter of Louis Brandeis, the other the son of Walter Raushenbush, and they found a home in the Unitarian Church in Madison, Wisconsin, and worshipped at the Frank Lloyd Wright building. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to see it, but it's just a wonderful Unitarian. And I think the distinction of Unitarian meeting houses is that the light shines in, and there's always light. And I think the chalice indicates that, and then the people also indicate that. So thank you very much, Reverend Tom. And also I want to acknowledge my new very good friend, Matt Anderson, who is here, who's the executive director of Mosaic and Interfaith Alliance. The national organization is very proud to be partnering with Mosaic, and we've had so many great events already this weekend. I'm just really honored to be a partner with you and want to really lift up the work that Mosaic is doing in the Miami community and has been doing for 90 years. This is a really august interfaith organization that you have here in Miami, and we feel fortunate to partner with you, and also I hope Miami realizes what a gem you have in Matt Anderson and also in Mosaic. Lastly, I want to acknowledge 2 really esteemed, wonderful colleagues I have, which is Maureen O'Leary, who is our Director of Field and Organizing for Interfaith Alliance around the country. We have Interfaith Alliance's affiliates in locations such as, we have one in Southwest Florida in Naples. We also have in Iowa, Wyoming, Oklahoma, Texas, all the most progressive areas of the world. But what we do, bring people together to stand up and say, actually, we want a country that is inclusive and welcoming to all. So, Maureen, I'm glad you're here with me. I also want to acknowledge Alyssa Klein, who is here with her father. Alyssa Klein is one of the geniuses of social media, as well as an intensely talented musician and wonderful person, and so our team is amazing, and so we're delighted to be here today. This morning's talk, well, the last thing I'll say before I get into my talk is the music today is almost like, I don't know what happened, but it's like all my favorite stuff. Literally, the first hymn is like my favorite hymn, Once to Every Soul and Nation, and then to have Sondheim. We're like, I'm a Sondheim, who isn't, but yes, Sondheim for service. Thank you very much. And this last This last song was a great favorite of my father's, and it's just one of them, truly beautiful, and that rendition was just exquisite. So how lucky do I feel that that we're surrounded by music and the great meditation from Reverend Tom, and so I feel like if this sermon is a bust, it's not because it hasn't been set up so beautifully. So this morning's talk is titled, Shall Christian Nationalists Win? The Critical Role of Congregations in Protecting Our Diverse Democracy. And I want to focus on the power that we have in our spiritual and religious communities that is absolutely crucial for meeting the current moment. The title of my talk is a reference to a sermon preached by Harry Emerson Fosdick in 1922 at First Presbyterian Church in New York City, and it was called Shall the Fundamentalists Win? And it was one of the most famous sermons of the early 20th century, and Fosdick's words have been much cited by liberal Christians over the past 100 years, concerned that their faith is being distorted by other Christians who are rigidly fixated on scriptural inerrancy, riven with apocalyptic views, and intolerant of dissent. Worth mentioning that Reverend Fosdick was kicked out of his church for preaching that sermon. Yet while the sermon addressed serious religious and theological concerns, it only hinted at the adverse effects that Christian fundamentalism would have on the wider society in the 20th century. A century later, we are now faced with an even more serious threat, one that takes the theological language of Christian fundamentalism and grafts it on to a ruthless political machine intent on using the power of the state to enforce its worldview onto the entire society. So it might be helpful to take a few minutes to share some of the defining features of Christian nationalism, which is an ideology, a quest for power, and a lens through which a growing number of Americans view their role in our society. It is not new, but it has drawn recent mainstream attention after Christian symbols, flags, and Bible verses were ubiquitous during the attack on our democracy and our Capitol on January 6th of 2021. Christian nationalism has its roots in the dangerous myth that we were founded as a Christian nation, and therefore Christianity has a privileged position in our nation that must be preserved. They use the rhetoric of a Christian nation with its underpinnings of white supremacy, xenophobia, patriarchy, and authoritarianism to dictate who is a true American and who will be relegated to perennial outside status. The goal of Christian nationalism is the consolidation of power in the hands of an exclusive religious and political movement, and it is using churches, courts, and increasingly electoral politics to gain power over the majority of the American people. The goal of Christian nationalism is the establishment of a theocracy. Unfortunately, Christian nationalism is not relegated to the shadow corners of our country. A poll recently released by Public Religion Research Institute and Brookings indicates that close to 30% of Americans are either adherents or sympathetic to Christian nationalism, and that among white evangelical Protestant, that number jumps to nearly 2/3. Over 1 in 4 Americans believe that the United States should declare itself a Christian nation. As journalist and author Catherine Stewart recently wrote in The New Republic, Christian nationalists are increasingly framing their efforts as a spiritual battle that resonates with many of its Pentecostal and charismatic followers. Christian nationalism puts the power of Christian nationalist pits the power of Jesus which is their side, versus the power of Satan, which is mostly me, I guess, or any who oppose them. The spiritualization of political power introduces a zero-sum game in which compromise is capitulation, and which nothing less than God's favor is at stake, stakes which lead to violence. And violence is acceptable in the Christian nationalist worldview, who approve of using violence for their goals at nearly 7 times the rates of other Americans. Nearly 1 in 5 Americans asserts that not only is the United States a white Christian nation, but they are willing to fight to preserve it. So if you are alarmed, then you are paying attention, because we should be alarmed. But that does not mean we should lose hope. It does mean that we need to show up. The good news is, as of now, Christian nationalism continues to be unpopular. 70% of Americans reject calls to declare America a Christian nation. Close to 75% of Americans said they preferred a country made up of diverse faiths, not just Christianity. 80% of Americans reject the idea that Christians should exercise dominion over all areas of society. Christian nationalist views on race, gender, immigration, and LGBT people are also unpopular and out of step with the American public. We are in a crucial moment, and it will take all of us to counteract the influence of Christian nationalism and defend our democracy. Spiritual and religious congregations like this one will play a critical role because of the power that you have. Before I get to the role of congregations, I want to tell you a foundational story about my own spiritual development. The first thing to know is that I am from an interfaith family, and my closest cousins are Jewish. We knew in our bones that no religion was inherently better than another. I like to say that I was born with an interfaith heart. But as my mother was Presbyterian, I was raised in a Presbyterian church in Madison, Wisconsin, and we went to church on Sundays, and that was expected of us until about the age of 15 or 16, when we went through confirmation classes and decided whether or not to join the church. We were given that decision by our parents, and some of my siblings chose to join the church, others chose not to. However, I believe I was the only person in the history of the church to fail confirmation class because I didn't know that attending classes was mandatory. Instead, I went and played at a friend's house for about an hour or two and then returned home and said it was, class was fine. And when the time came to get confirmed, the pastor said, "Almost all of you will be confirmed," and gave me a side eye. And it taught me one of the most important lessons of my spiritual life, that it mattered if I showed up. It mattered to my family, it mattered to the church, and it mattered to me that I would show up physically for what I believed in and show up along others as a community. Right now, in this pivotal moment in our nation's history, it matters that we as individuals, but also that we as faith and spiritual communities of all kinds show up and stand up against Christian nationalism. In this moment, when civic spaces where people traditionally congregate, such as public schools, higher education, and libraries, are being hollowed out intentionally, the physical campuses that house spiritual and religious congregations can serve as welcoming locations where people can continue to come together physically and find common ground and common purpose. Isolation and separation are the enemies of democracy. But when we come together and grow in trust and in understanding, we build a powerful inoculation against a culture of demonization and distrust in which Christian nationalism thrives. Many congregations are already playing this role, and it would be powerful to see an interconnected map of Miami with dozens, maybe hundreds of stars signifying spiritual and religious communities that are destinations where diverse civic life is valued and people from every background are invited to physically come together and know one another. In addition to locations where we can draw people in, congregations have networks to send people out for rapid mobilization and response. Congregations are people, and people are power. If a local temple, mosque, or other community has been targeted with bigotry and violence, as is increasingly the case, congregations like this one can bring out people to show up, to offer solidarity and support. In addition to moments of crisis, congregations have the power to mobilize a diverse group of religious and spiritual people from a range of traditions to show up side by side to public forums, community rallies, to the voting booth, sending a clear signal to our elected officials and to our neighbors that we reject the exclusivist claims of Christian nationalism and demand that this community and this country be a place where people of all faiths and all backgrounds be treated equally under the law. Congregations can also provide a hub for reliable information sharing and education. Knowledge is power, and congregations are places of learning about spiritual traditions and practices, but also about the world in which we live. Reading books together, watching films, educating ourselves about our country's history and the experience of diverse Americans in an environment of open inquiry is so important now, as there is so much disinformation at work. As we know, Christian nationalists are attempting to erase our history with book bans and restriction on what can be taught. We need to mobilize to reverse those efforts, but in the meantime, the learning can go on in our congregations. I talked to one pastor in Florida who is organizing an accredited African American Studies AP course that is given within his church, for which students will receive credit. In another conversation with a friend of mine, she suggested that every congregation should look at the banned book list in their local community and invest in buying those books for their congregational library. And a former classmate of mine recently posted that she was reading from her church's banned book reading brunch section. So it is tragic that we have come to this, but it does call upon the great religious tradition in America where congregations have been places of resistance, as well as locations where fact-based information can be shared. Perhaps the greatest contribution of congregations to this effort will not be what, but how we will approach the struggle against Christian nationalism. I confess to you that Christian nationalism and the people who are its most ardent followers really frighten me. As a gay man with a husband and 2 children, I hear the words they use to talk about me, and I fear what they would do to my family, and I find my hand balling into a fist as I prepare for the fight ahead. We are in a dangerous situation, and we need to be heads up about the threat. However, it is worth considering how we shall engage this struggle without becoming that which we hate. This is perhaps the most important role that congregations can play in this current moment. And we heard the reading from 1 Corinthians. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I might boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends, and now faith, hope, and love abide, these three. And the greatest of these is love. This reading that is so recognizable to many of us from weddings was not actually written about the love between two individuals. It was written to an early Christian church in Corinth that was divided by issues of class, gender, background, and different ways to practice their faith. Earlier in the letter, Paul attempts to persuade the church how much they need each other and that the diversity within their church is part of their strength. And in this passage, he acknowledges that there are many ways for followers of Jesus to practice their faith, but there is one characteristic that is the most important, and that is love. One more confession. When I hear about love, when I feel angry and threatened, as I do about Christian nationalism, it's hard for me to contain my rolling eyes. I mean, come on. Love. However, when I look to the spiritual leaders whom I admire most, they talk about love. Gandhi said the nectar of love alone can destroy the poison of hate. Nelson Mandela said no one is born hating another person because of the color of their skin or their background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than the opposite. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who is the great spiritual teacher that America has offered the world, reminded us that hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. And I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great of a burden to bear. The challenge that Christian nationalism poses to our country is grave, but certainly no graver than what Dr. King, Mahatma Gandhi, or Nelson Mandela faced. They chose love because they looked into the deep well of their spiritual tradition and saw the path of love offered the greatest resources and tactic that would actually lead to the future they longed for. And the opportunity is for us to do the same. It starts in a way that is very personal, and the local congregation can help each of us learn how to access the love in our own spirits, hearts, and minds. How do we learn the discipline of love? Because it is hard to learn and requires practice. But as so many of our spiritual forebears reminded us, it can and must be done. Every diverse congregation will call upon its own wisdom, which is the beauty of it. And we can learn from one another's traditions of love as a source of power. We can also learn the collective practice of love that is nonviolent resistance. In an interview that I did with Representative John Lewis about his time in the civil rights movement, he told me that people had to be trained in nonviolence before they were allowed to go to the protests. Our congregations can be a place where we learn the deep roots of nonviolent protests and show up with love even as we resist the powers that would try to demean or destroy us. So, in this crisis moment, for our democracy, for our people, love will be our guide, our tactic, and our power as our congregations mobilize in this time of great challenge. Love taps into the deepest wells of the Spirit. It joins people together to refuse to hate. Love diffuses lies. Love targets no one. Love casts a vision for the future in which everyone has dignity and worth. This is not just about them, it is about us. When we are overcome by love, we show up and we uncurl the fist and extend the hand to others from all faiths, races, backgrounds, and make the invitation. Join us. Together, we will show up. Together, we will be powerful. And together, guided by the transformative power of love, we will diffuse Christian nationalism. Together, we, all of us, together can win. Amen.
Our closing hymn today is in the gray hymnal, number 131. Love Will Guide Us, as Choir Next Door comes and joins me on the stage. I want to let you know that if you'd like to learn any more about Choir Next Door, which is a relatively new ensemble in their first years, there's information in the back. There's also QR codes to make a donation, and they will be staying for lunch, so you can chat with them as well. And with me, but I think you already know who I am. So please feel free to stand in body or spirit and join us in our closing hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Peace has tried us, hope inside us, will lead the way. Change the world with your love. Come on. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us.
Now I'm taller. Go ahead and sit down. Yep. I think you took the rest of my script. Sorry. That's all right. It'll all work out. There we are. Okay, there we go. Well, first, it is tradition here to say thank you. And I want to say thank you to all of you for being here, to our volunteers and professional staff, to everyone that makes the service and makes this congregation thrive. And so, and Derek might stick his hand out and say he's run the slides today. Okay, there he goes. I'm going to run up there. Oh, there's his hand. Okay. But thank the board, thank the committees, thank everyone. The RE teacher, Jessica, there's so many people. And of course, thank Choir Next Door. Did you introduce them? Did you introduce their names? You can. I would say, Sam, so when you go up and talk to them, it's Sam, Roy, Charlie, and Michael. There we go. And thank you, Paul, for making time, for being with us today. So after this, we get lunch, which, whoa, it's looks pretty good back there. Oh, it's got pizza. Looks pizza. Okay. So it's $5 donation unless this is your first time here, just eat, just have pizza. So let's see. Paul's going to stay with us during lunch, and are y'all going to stay? So we'll be able to talk to people and get to know each other and stuff. That's good. After lunch, I'm going to hold a group. It's on values exploration called Musar. And today we're going to talk about loving kindness. So if you're interested in talking about loving kindness after lunch, join us. Now, we don't have slides for this, so I'm going to be up on the screen now. Tomorrow there are two great events, and so you have to make a choice. In the spirit of MLK, there's going to be a jazz presentation here put on by, I have it right here. A jazz by the Miami Jazz Cooperative and the Sunshine Jazz Organization to celebrate Martin Luther King. This was fabulous. There's flyers back there. I went to this last year. It was just amazing. And if jazz is not your thing, Paul is going to be at the Coral Gables Art Cinema on a panel after the showing of Repairing the World, Stories from the Tree of Life. So that is another option you have tomorrow. Also, tomorrow, MLK Day, is a day that Unitarian Universalists begin something that's called 30 Days of Love. So if you're interested in learning about social justice, if you're interested in learning how to manage all the issues that come up for you as you struggle with how can you work for justice, this is a place for resources, for insight, for interaction, for ideas on how to do justice in your everyday life. Every day they offer something for you to do to work toward justice. Sometimes it's about taking care of yourself. Sometimes it's about signing a petition. Sometimes it's about going into the world and standing up and speaking your truth. If you're interested in it, let me know, or just go to Side with Love, 30 Days of Love 2024. Next week, I'm going to preach on placing love at the center as we work for reproductive justice. And next week, after the service at 1 and 6 p.m., there'll be a play right here. Anne and Me, or the Big Bad Abortion Play. All donations for the play will be given to the Women's Emergency Network. I have a reminder up here that there's going to be a ditty now. Come on. Oh. You can use this mic to do your ditty.
Bob Jacober is quite a guy. There's not a soul who will deny his charm, his talent, his way with words. He's in our choir. He sings like a bird. I wrote this ditty to honor Bob, so won't you join with me to celebrate his birthday? He's turning 93. Please join us in singing Happy Birthday. It's Janice's birthday, too.
You get it sung twice, Bob, when you turn 93. So if I get to be 93, I hope people sing at least twice that I'm having a happy birthday. My friends, the world aches for us to join together with people of all faiths and no faith to bring about healing, to toil for justice, and to produce ever-increasing love. This is our calling. Go forth and let us do so. Amen. I invite you now to stand and greet one another in the spirit of happiness and joy and love, and especially those you don't know. And Joseph, will you sing us out or play us out?